Tom Bombadil doesn't deserve the hate. He's just a happy fellow.
What?
Without backstory.
Oh, wait, what? Yeah.
How is this a hot take?
What? This isn't a hot take.
This isn't hot.
Who hates Tom Bombadil? We don't.
No one hates Tom Bombadil.
Why are you doing? Whoa!
What is this? You call yourself a fantasy book too, bro.
Oh.
Unpopular opinions. You guys seem to absolutely love these videos, and I have now had Mike's book review, Patrick Leo, Bookborn on, and today I'm honored to have to Ramble joining here today to discuss your unpopular opinions. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic! Oh!
And as always, I always ask my guests if they can share an unpopular bookish opinion before we get into your guys' unpopular opinions. So, Richard and Austin, do you have an unpopular opinion you'd like to share with everyone?
Why don't you start us off, Richard?
All right, I'll jump into the deep end here. I think sci-fi inherently is written for smarter people than fantasy.
Ooh,
And I'm not saying that I'm like, oh, we're lording above the rest of you. I just think it's one of those niches that sometimes if you don't get it, it's not written for you. There's sometimes like books are just written that you're not the audience of. And I think it's sci-fi is just for general nerds where fantasy can kind of be read by all.
Johan, what do you think about that?
You know, I really, really struggled to get into sci-fi, but you're basically telling me I'm not smart enough. That's probably why I'm not enjoying it.
See, that's just the sci-fi defense of when someone reads a sci-fi book that you like, and then they're like, "Oh, I didn't like that book." It's like, but you're not smart enough to understand. You don't get it. You have to have at least 20 IQ points higher to understand this Rick and Morty episode.
Good hot
Really?
take, Rich.
Yeah.
My hot take, are we ready?
Mhm.
It's very simple, not as pretentious. Mine is more so this. I hate 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, I hate dream sequences. I'm just not a fan of dream sequences in books. For some reason, my suspension of disbelief of reading a book, then reading a dream within a book is just one extra layer of get back to the plot. I always have an innate urge to go, get back to the good stuff, get back to what's actually happening. Of course, that's not always the case. The dreams also have to do with some things in the plot, but that's my innate feeling towards dream sequences.
You're gonna love the Wheel of Time then.
I was about to say I'm understanding more and more your ratings of the Wheel of Time, and this is not going to be.
We're going on to book 4 next of Reading the Shadow Rising now, and hey, who knows? Maybe.
So, without further ado, let's get into the first one. I'd rather A Song of Ice and Fire be unfinished masterpiece than be finished by another author.
Oh. You know.
So okay, let me go first then. I slightly disagree with this one because one of my favorite series of all time was finished by another author, and I'm so glad it was. The Wheel of Time. That was, Brandon Sanderson. He showed that it is possible for another author to go in and write the last books and do a pretty good job. But I do also understand that if someone else picks it up and it's just horrible, then you maybe just wanted to just have the books as they were. So I think slightly agree, just because of my experience with the Wheel of Time.
You'd probably say the same, Rich. Same reasoning.
Basically, yeah.
And Rich, if you ever write a book series and tragically pass away, I could finish that for you.
Tragically.
Tragically. Completely. Yeah, we have the same reasonings as you. It can be done phenomenally.
It's almost good or bad. A conclusion is almost necessary. It's almost worse when there's no conclusion.
Yeah, conclusions are important, but I don't know who would be able to actually write the last 2 books in the A Song of Ice and Fire. I think that is an immense undertaking, but hopefully George R. R. Martin has the script written somewhere or publishes it when he passes away.
Hey, Sanderson, run it back. Round 2.
No, Sanderson, he could not finish it.
He could not. That's not his series.
It's different.
He couldn't.
Also, the prose is very
no. But I personally just don't even think A Song of Ice and Fire is going to be finished.
Brilliant. Let's move on to the next one. Brandon Sanderson is very overrated. Good concepts, but really boring writing style. Ooh.
Oh.
Definitely.
Okay. You tricked us, Johan.
You go first.
Oh man.
You go ahead.
So Sanderson is being overrated. I think not just Sanderson as a writer and person blows me away. What he first, I have to talk before his writing, what he does for the fans, how he keeps everybody up to date, has a weekly podcast episode, weekly update episode, shows his percentage. No author's doing what Sanderson does on that level. And on top of that, he has so many unique ideas. He pulls, if you can see on the top of our bookshelf, the secret projects, pulls that out of nowhere. We know what Sanderson's done for the fantasy community, but on top of that, there's something for everybody. If you want an epic fantasy, Stormlight Archive. If you want more of your Skyward series for kind of more YA. If you want just a nice quick novella, Emperor's Soul. I think if you read like of his 40 whatever books, you're going to find something for you. It's going to hit at some point. Sanderson is one of the GOATs today.
I completely agree. The one slight agreement to the comment response, if I'm going to give them any credence, the writing style. I think he has some great writing moments. Like some of the hype up moments are just amazing. And it's probably what got me back into fiction. However, through the whole book, am I enthralled during the whole thing? Just the style? Maybe it doesn't interest me as much. Other people can maybe do it better. But that's just, I'm thinking of things like Joe Abercrombie is able to take an arguably boring scene, a scene that should not be that exciting, but the style of how it's written is just so enthralling. And so maybe that's the case. Maybe that's where I would give a little bit of agreement to.
No, I agree with you that he's the GOAT. And I also agree with you about the writing style that, I mean, he's no Robin Hobb or Ted Williams. Like, I'm reading The Dragonman Chair right now, and there's so many scenes where nothing happens, but I'm still having a great time. And I wonder if Sanderson would be able to pull off writing boring scenes where almost nothing happens in a interesting way. But otherwise he's great. And I love that you mentioned those weekly catch-ups he has. I would love to see Patrick Rothfuss have like a weekly catch-up.
Oh, man.
So let's move on to the next one. So this opinion was included in another video, but since I had you both on here, I had to include it again.
Ooh, great.
Red Rising. I'm somewhere in the middle with this one, so
don't touch my Pierce Brown.
More realistically, I am somewhere in the middle.
Hard disagree. Hard. I want to hear what you guys have to say. What are your thoughts, Johan? What are your thoughts on Red Rising?
I read the Red Rising trilogy, just the original trilogy, this year, and I'm going to continue next year. And I had a great time. So I didn't hate it. I enjoyed book 2 and 3 especially. I didn't really enjoy book 1, which I know is your favorite, isn't it?
No, my favorite's book 2.
Okay, yeah. Book 2 was also my favorite, for sure. So let me emphasize, I didn't hate the Red Rising trilogy. It's just that I expected it to become in my top 5 series of all time from all the hype I've heard. And it just didn't reach those levels. I just found it to be... And this probably doesn't make any sense to you, but I felt that occasionally it was too dramatic, where it almost, I don't want to call it YA, but it just felt extremely dramatic. And not all those dramatic moments hit for me, but I had a great time. I'll probably give it 4 out of 5 stars. It's just that I expected to give it 5 out of 5 stars, the whole trilogy, and that didn't happen, hence why it's probably in my honorable mentions for best series of all time.
That's the strange thing about expectations too. Like if you didn't hear about Red Rising and thought like, oh, I'm expecting a 3-star book, then you would get a 4-star. You'd be like, whoa, okay, pretty good. But hearing all the praise, if you hear a fanatic like me go, my favorite book ever, and everybody's saying that, then you read it and go, oh, it's good, and it's going to be more mess. So I get that point of view.
One last thing, I do think that the fact that I didn't really enjoy the first book, Red Rising, that much, also did impact my whole reading experience a bit. But book 2 was a massive step up for me, like massive.
We are in the same boat. So I guess spoilers for Red Rising at this point a little bit, but when I started the Red Rising book, I expected we were going to get a Golden Sun type novel. Because it's set up of, okay, Darrow is going to infiltrate the Gold Society and it's going to be this kind of space opera. And that's what I was expecting. And then we just went right into Hunger Games. And I thought, okay, this is a part of the book. Get it. And that was the rest of the book. I'm like, okay, when are we going to get to the rest of the book? And it was just Hunger Games for the whole thing. And I was really confused. So it was an odd... I felt like I was robbed a little bit. And then Golden
Yeah.
Sun gave me everything that I wanted or I thought I was expecting.
Yeah.
And then as for me, you said, hey, it's Hunger Games in space, and went, cool. Read it. So my expectations going in were Hunger Games in space.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. But Golden Sun is a good book. I really, really enjoyed it.
Did you say good and not masterpiece? That was odd. I thought
It's really good, honestly.
It was really good. But
All right, we'll take
maybe also just the setting doesn't excite me as much as fantasy. So I think maybe it's also a bit of a preference
Okay.
thing.
The setting for me
But
is
I will
like
read.
it's that in between. I generally like sci-fi settings more, but this is not my favorite sci-fi setting. And so I'm kind of in that in between. Like it's good. It's a good setting.
Brilliant. Mistborn is better than Stormlight.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. I've only read the first 2 Stormlight books, but I think the writing is better and the plot is more interesting and more compelling. But Mistborn is one of the series that got me into fantasy. So I'm really struggling with this one, but I'm pretty sure when I've read the other 2 Stormlight Archive books that I'll definitely rate it higher. So at the moment, they're around the same level for me, but I can definitely see a path of Stormlight overtaking it. So that's why I'm a bit, I don't know.
If you consider like what is better for the genre, I think Mistborn is almost better because it's the much better introduction. It'll get people who are not big readers into reading again, where Stormlight is not that. You have to. There's a lot of pages before you get hooked into Stormlight.
Definitely.
I don't know, but because I've heard that several times where people go like, "Oh yeah, I read like 50, 100 pages, and I was still not hooked." And it's like, well, yeah, it's a slow burn. Stormlight's a bit of a slow burn, where I think you're hooked into Mistborn by like chapter 2.
Yeah,
you're hooked immediately. So better for the genre maybe, but if you give that challenge for people who are really into fantasy, you're probably going to get more out of Stormlight than you get out of Mistborn.
Brilliant. Let's move on to the next one. Tom Bombadil doesn't deserve the hate. He's just a happy fellow.
What?
Without backstory.
Oh, wait, what? Yeah.
How is this a hot take?
What? This isn't a hot take.
This isn't hot.
Who hates Tom Bombadil? We don't.
No one hates Tom Bombadil.
Why are you doing? Whoa! What is that?
You call yourself a fantasy book too, bro.
Oh.
Okay, I'm somewhere in the middle here. I don't understand what Tolkien was thinking when he read Tom Bombadil. Like, what is the point? If that was in the movies, then that would literally have ruined the tone of the movies. It just feels so random. Like, okay, convince me. Why is Tom Bombadil the greatest thing ever?
Okay. Full spoilers for the books. I'm not saying he should be added to the movies. Not saying that at all. Movies are going for a different tone than the book. In many ways, you could argue the movies are going for the opposite tone that the books try and go for. That's a different conversation. But for the books,
That's a different conversation.
Tom Bombadil is a great influence for the rest of the story. I think when you get introduced to him early on, you see this character and you think this weird, whimsical character and is not affected by the ring and just all this mystery around him. And you think, oh, cute. Okay. And then as you keep going through the story later, he always pops up back in your mind of like, you come across new characters of how they're affected by the ring and how they're affected by the story. And then you think back, wait a minute, Tom wasn't affected. So you start growing and Tom sticking in your mind becomes more of a huge impactful character as the story progresses. And you realize you met the final boss at the very beginning of the story. It's so weird to think about like moments going forward and you come across like something crazy happens, some big event, and then you realize, wait a minute, this wouldn't have affected Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil could have solved this problem already. And we met him in the beginning and you didn't know. And it's such a great thing to look back on frequently.
Tom Bombadillo. It's so good in the audiobook.
No, he couldn't have saved it though because he didn't care about the ring. That was his issue, wasn't it?
No, but he has the ability.
How can you call Tom Bombadil the boss of Middle Earth?
It's Tom Bombadillo. You sing it right, Johan. Tom Bombadil. I think you're right. It wouldn't fit in the Peter Jackson trilogy, especially for the audience of trying to explain what the ring is to general audience. But Tom Bombadil, and you know, like there's that talking fox in the beginning of Lord of the Rings, that paragraph or so. I think what Tolkien was doing was transitioning from The Hobbit to the Lord of the Rings. So in that kind of first part, setting the tone of, hey, this one's more serious, but here's some lighthearted, here's your song still, and getting into that more epic fantasy creates in Lord of the Rings.
It creates a lot of whimsy.
Yeah.
And I just loved reading it, of just this, it sets a weird expectation for him. I just remember him like picking up the ring going, oh, this is nothing. Oh, it's a funny little trinket. And you think it just lowers your expectations. And you think, oh, okay, then it's not that big of a deal. And then later on, you just start little details of, oh yeah, Sauron, this big powerful bad that we're trying to go up against, has no influence on Tom Bombadil.
Tom, what a guy.
But he doesn't care. He is like this godlike being that it's amazing. It's so much fun. I love him.
Well, let's leave it with that one. Tom Bombadil. You can love him. You can call him the boss of Middle Earth. I'll never forget that. Let's move on to the next one. We'll leave Tom Bombadil in Middle Earth. Narnia does not hold up.
I have no strong opinion. You guys take this one. I have no strong opinion on this.
I just think there's better stuff. I guess I'm not the biggest fan of. I agree with Tolkien on this. I'm not the biggest fan of direct allegory.
Yeah.
So it kind of hits you over the head with it. Cool world, I guess, but there's a lot of stuff better.
Actually, maybe I'm somewhere in the middle. I read Narnia as an adult 3 years ago, and I am a Christian. I'm from a Christian background, so I understood all the allegory and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's written for children, so I didn't really enjoy it. But will I read it for my children if I have some? Yes, I'll definitely read it. So that's why I also think it does hold up, because I will read it to my children if I have some children one day, and I'll probably show them the movies. But it's not a series I've ever recommended to my viewers really ever since I created this channel. So I kind of do understand it, but it's one of the most influential series of all time. And when you think about that, you don't hear it that often on BookTube. It's all like 100 million copies, you know. Brilliant. Let's move on to the next one. Sword of Kaigen was ruined by the relationship plotline.
Okay, I have an opinion on this.
Okay.
You start then.
I just want to start by saying I think the last chapter of the Sword and Kaigen is what this response is getting at. I'm not going to spoil the book, but the last chapter goes on too long and focuses. I think it stretched it out just far enough too long, and the character wasn't as bombastic. And since there's not a sequel in the series, and it kind of just ends with some little bit of loose ends. It wasn't like 10 out of 10 ending, but the entire book as a whole is so phenomenal that it stretching out just a little bit too long is not enough to ruin the book. It has some of the best characters in fantasy, in fiction. Takaru, Misaki, Mamoru, the uncles. I love the kids are all like 10 out of 10 characters. And no stretched out ending is going to ruin what that is for me. So that's my take.
Thing is, you're being generous. You're assuming this person is referring to one specific relationship at the very end. What if this person is talking about the main relationship?
No way.
Like the whole relationship dynamic.
You're crazy.
Because if that's the
point, the whole point.
That's the whole point.
That's the point of the book.
Then that means this.
Well, that's one of the points.
This commenter is commenting on. Oh, I really liked the fighting plot line and the all of the intrigue of the war aspect, and not the relationship between
Mamoru and
Misaki.
Right? People that have not read Sword of Kaigen are like, what are these guys talking about? I wouldn't change anything about the Sword of Kaigen, because I think it's a beautiful book from the first page to the last page, and I mean, I do understand some of the criticisms, but not every book's going to work for everyone, and I wouldn't change anything with that. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, we have many different ones, so we'll take them one by one. People need to embrace chaos on their shelves. Mismatched sets are okay. So let's start with that one. Mismatched sets are okay. I mean, I'm not going to shame anyone that has mismatched sets, but I would not want mismatched sets on my shelf. Go on.
If you can't afford it, fair enough.
Yeah.
Exactly. Understandable. Exactly. You buy what you can, keep what you can, fine. But if you have the means to do so and you choose not to, that's where the shame comes in. That's different.
I think a big part of it too is we are definitely not the people to ask this question, because on BookTube you need to have like a backdrop. And just imagine having a mismatch. Actually, that would be a little unique.
Oh yeah,
maybe. But I think you need to have, for the aesthetic purposes, that's half the fun of having physical books.
Yeah, that's true. And also, when you go to charity shops or secondhand books, you can buy like mismatched sets and save so much money. So I'm not going to shame anyone. Like, also, if you read, then that's the most important thing, you know. So, but yeah, exactly. I agree with you. But let's take the next one. Movie posters as covers are okay.
No, they should be banned by law. Like,
yeah,
I want a federal law against it across countries.
So bad. Like, I just hate it so much. It's just like cash grab, isn't it?
Thing is, it's a cash grab that like I don't understand how it works.
No, same. Why would you buy a book that has a movie poster?
I have to assume it's not for book readers. It's for parents and grandparents that saw the movie and were like, "Oh, my son or grandson or granddaughter would reads. I'll get this book because I liked the movie." That's my assumption of how those books sell.
Moving on, I love slow burns and scenes that don't add to the plot, but build world and character. Longer is better.
Oh, 50-50. 50-50 in this one. Yeah.
My thought on it is that you could do, like, the best case scenario is you can do both.
Yeah.
You don't have to pick one, but I do enjoy slow moments that build the character in the world.
And I think there's a definitional difference between slow burn and boring. Slow burn is something that is taking time and building up to something great, and you're enjoying the moments. It's a slow progressing book that's actually engaging, versus a boring book is just things you're not invested in.
So and things that are going to nowhere.
Yeah, people often, I think, conflate like the slow burn with boring. No, slow burns can be great. Longer is sometimes better because you have more time to develop your characters and so forth. But I mean, even think for simple movies, sometimes just like a 90-minute Pixar film, complete, full, boom, just wonderful. But then you can also watch a 4-hour epic, be like, whoa.
I think this only is true if the book is good. So a prime example, we've already talked about Wheel of Time so often, but book 8, 9, and especially 10 is a prime example of longer is not better. Even though you love the world, it just doesn't add anything. But I think it also comes down to, do the slow moments actually add anything to the plot? Because sometimes at the end of a book, of a very slow book, you've seen how this character has very slowly changed, and all of these minor things has added up to this massive climax at the end. And in those cases, slow burns are beautiful, but one of my pet peeves, one of the things I hate the most in fantasy, are unnecessary side quests. Cut them out and make the book shorter. I just like, if we have a side quest and it doesn't add anything, I don't want to read it. Alright, the last one, I think we'll probably agree with this one. Farmboys need to stay at the farm and leave fantasy alone. Lots of potatoes to plant.
You know why I agree? Because Wheel of Time wouldn't be a thing. Thank you. That's my time.
I hate you. I hate you so much.
That is so mean.
All right, that's all I got.
Oh, God. Some would consider Darrow a farm boy.
Our channel speaking.
Potatoes. Oh, brilliant. God. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this video. This has been lots and lots of fun. And yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for watching.
Johan, thank you so much. This has been awesome. All right.
Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. Now, if you want to support what I do here, then I do have a Patreon. Now, a reason why I created a Patreon was to find a new way to reinvest to the channel, because basically since I created my Patreon, I spent around 100% of my earnings to hire an editor to do a couple of videos for me a month. Now, since creating my Patreon, an editor has done more than 20 videos for me on my channel, so it makes a huge difference. Now, if you join my Patreon, you will also get some benefits. For example, you'll get a name in my videos like these guys. You'll also be able to join the exclusive Viking book club, where every month we read one book together, and you might be the one to put the book forward. This month we're reading this book, and next month we're reading this book. You also get to vote on my next read, get access to exclusive videos like a wrap-up or even book reviews, and so much more. But this is totally voluntary, but all support is much appreciated.